I'm Dr. Christy, and this is Climbing Fish Parenting, practical parenting strategies in 20 minutes or less. I'm a psychologist and behavior analyst, and I work with exhausted, overwhelmed parents who feel like they've tried everything and nothing works. If you're listening to this while folding the laundry, hiding in your car, or wishing bedtime would just end already, you're in the right place. Today's topic is boundaries. And look, I know this word gets thrown around a lot, but here's what I need you to understand. The boundaries you set or don't set are directly teaching your child what boundaries are, how they work, and whether they matter. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what a boundary actually is, why boundary work is some of the most important parenting work you can do, and specific steps you can take to get better at setting them, even when it feels impossible. Ready to transform your parenting journey? Let's dive in. Let me start by explaining what a boundary actually is, because I think there's a lot of confusion about this. A boundary is not a rule you impose on someone else. It's not about controlling another person's behavior. A boundary is about what you will and will not accept, and what you will do to protect your own well-being, values, and limits. Here's the key distinction. A rule sounds like, you can't talk to me that way. A boundary sounds like, I don't engage in conversations when someone is yelling at me. If you continue to yell, I'm going to leave the room until you're calm. See the difference? The rule tries to control the other person's behavior. The boundary states what you will do based on their behavior. You're not controlling them. You're controlling your own response. Let me give you a parenting example. Your 10-year-old keeps interrupting you while you're on a work call. A rule would be, stop interrupting me. A boundary would be, when I'm on a work call, I can't be interrupted unless it's an emergency. If you interrupt me anyway, I will not respond until my call is finished. The boundary is clear. It states what you need and what you'll do if that need isn't met. And here's what's powerful about boundaries. You don't need the other person to agree or comply for your boundary to work. You just follow through with what you said you'd do. Here's what happens when kids grow up in homes where boundaries are clear and consistently held. They learn that boundaries are normal, important, and protective. They learn that everyone, including them, gets to have limits. They learn that saying no is okay, that their needs matter, and that they don't have to tolerate behavior that doesn't feel right to them. And this is critical, because kids who grow up understanding boundaries become adults who can set boundaries. They become adults who don't stay in toxic relationships, who don't get walked all over at work, who can say no without guilt, and who recognize when someone is violating their limits and know how to protect themselves. On the flip side, kids who grow up in homes where boundaries are either non-existent or wildly inconsistent learn that boundaries don't really matter. They learn that limits are negotiable, that no doesn't really mean no, and that if you push hard enough, you can usually get what you want. And those kids, they become adults who struggle. They don't know how to set boundaries because they never saw it modeled. They don't know how to respect other people's boundaries because they never had to. And they end up in relationships and situations where they're either getting hurt or hurting others, often both. So when you set a boundary with your child, you're not being mean. You're not being rigid. You're teaching them one of the most important life skills they will ever learn. And here's the part that a lot of parents don't realize. Boundaries aren't just for your kids' benefit. They're for yours, too. When you don't have boundaries, you become resentful. You say yes when you want to say no. You give and give and give until you're completely depleted. You tolerate behavior that makes you feel disrespected, exhausted, or taken advantage of. And eventually, you either explode or you shut down. I see this all the time with the parents I work with. They're running on empty because they've given everything to their kids and left nothing for themselves. And then they feel guilty for being resentful, which makes them give even more, which makes them more resentful. It's a terrible cycle. Boundaries break that cycle. When you set a boundary, you're protecting your own well-being so you can show up as the parent you want to be. You're modeling for your child that adults get to have limits too, and you're creating a family dynamic where everyone's needs matter, not just your child's. Here's the beautiful payoff. When you set and hold boundaries consistently, your child learns to respect them. They learn that when you say something, you mean it. They stop pushing so hard because they know the boundary isn't going to move. And that actually creates more peace in your home, not less. Okay, so if boundaries are so important, why are they so hard to set? Let me walk you through some of the most common reasons I see. Reason 1, you weren't raised with healthy boundaries. A lot of us grew up in homes where boundaries were either rigid and authoritarian, because I said so, and if you question me, you're being disrespectful, or they were non-existent and chaotic. And look, I'm going to be really honest with you here. This was my experience. Healthy boundaries were not modeled in my home growing up. I didn't learn how to set them, how to hold them, or even what they were supposed to look like. So when I became a parent, I had to teach myself these skills from scratch, and it has been hard. I've made tons of improvements over the years. I mean, I teach this stuff for a living now, but it's still something I have to be really mindful about. I have to consciously work at having appropriate boundaries with my kids. And I have to model boundary setting with other people in front of them, even when it feels uncomfortable or awkward, because I know they're watching and learning. So, if this is your experience too, if you're trying to learn something you were never taught, I want you to know you're not alone. And it is possible to learn this skill as an adult. It's just going to take practice, intention, and a lot of self-compassion when you mess up. Because you will mess up. We all do. If you grew up with rigid boundaries, you might be afraid of being too controlling, so you swing the other way and don't set boundaries at all. If you grew up with no boundaries, you might not even know what a healthy boundary looks like. You're parenting without a model, and that's really hard. But you can learn this skill, even if no one taught it to you. I'm proof of that. Reason 2. You confuse boundaries with meanness. This is huge. So many parents think that setting a boundary means being harsh or unkind. But boundaries can be kind. They can be calm. They can be delivered with warmth and empathy. Let's say your 5-year-old is having a meltdown because they want another cookie before dinner. A mean response would be, "Stop whining. I said no, and if you ask again, you're going to your room." A boundaried response would be, "I know you really want another cookie. That's hard. And we don't eat cookies right before dinner. If you keep asking, I'm going to put the cookies away where you can't see them, so it's easier for you." You validated their feelings. You held the boundary. You stayed calm. That's not mean. That's clear and kind. Reason 3. You fear your child's big feelings. This one is so common, especially with parents of anxious or highly sensitive kids. You know that if you set a boundary, your kid is going to have a meltdown. They're going to cry or rage or tell you that they hate you, and you don't want to cause them pain, so you cave. But here's what I need you to understand. Your child's discomfort with a boundary is not the same as harm. Boundaries don't hurt kids. Boundaries teach kids that they can handle disappointment, that their feelings won't destroy them, and that limits are part of life. When you avoid setting boundaries because you're afraid of your child's reaction, you're teaching them that their big feelings are dangerous and intolerable. You're also teaching them that if they escalate enough, the boundary will disappear. Neither of those lessons serves them. Reason 4. You worry about being rejected. This is especially true for parents who struggle with people-pleasing. You want your child to like you. You want to be the fun parent, the understanding parent, the parent they come to when they need something. And you're afraid that if you set boundaries, they'll reject you. But kids don't need you to be their friend. They need you to be their parent. And part of being a parent is holding boundaries even when it makes you temporarily unpopular. Your child might say they hate you in the moment. They might slam doors or give you the silent treatment. But long term, they'll respect you more, not less. And here's the reality. Kids feel safest with parents who have clear boundaries. It might not look like it in the moment, but structure and limits actually reduce anxiety and increase security. Okay, so how do you actually get better at this? Let me give you some specific actionable steps. Step 1. Identify your non-negotiables. You can't set boundaries if you don't know where your limits are. So start by identifying what's truly non-negotiable for you. What behaviors, situations, or dynamics are you no longer willing to tolerate? Maybe it's being yelled at or called names. Maybe it's having no time to yourself. Maybe it's your child refusing to help with household tasks. Maybe it's bedtime taking 2 hours every single night. Write them down. Get specific. What are the things that, when they happen, leave you feeling depleted, resentful, or disrespected? Once you have your list, pick one to start with. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. Pick the boundary that, if you could hold it consistently, would make the biggest difference in your daily life. Step 2, state your boundary clearly. Once you know what your boundary is, you need to communicate it clearly to your child. And this is important. State it when everyone is calm, not in the middle of a conflict. Here's what this sounds like. I've noticed that bedtime has been taking a really long time, and it's leaving me exhausted. So here's what's changing. Bedtime routine starts at 7:30. We'll do bath, books, and tucking in. At 8 o'clock, I'm leaving your room. If you get out of bed after that, I'll walk you back without talking. I won't get frustrated or lecture you. I'll just calmly walk you back as many times as I need to. You stated the problem. You stated the new boundary. You stated what you'll do if the boundary is tested. Clear, calm, and kind. Step 3, follow through every single time. This is where most parents fail. They set the boundary, and then when their child tests it, which they will, they don't follow through. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they feel guilty. Maybe they just want the conflict to end. But if you don't follow through, your child learns that boundaries are optional. They learn that if they push hard enough, the boundary will disappear, and then the behavior gets worse, not better. So when you set a boundary, you have to commit to following through. Every single time, even when it's hard, even when you're exhausted, even when your child is melting down. This is another reason why I told you to pick just one boundary to get started with. Using the bedtime example, if your child gets out of bed, you calmly walk them back. No talking, no negotiating, no explaining again. You just follow through with what you said you'd do. The first few nights will be rough, but if you stay consistent, your child will learn that the boundary is real. Step 4, tolerate the discomfort. Here's the hardest part. Setting boundaries is uncomfortable. Your child will push back. They'll test you. They'll escalate to see if the boundary holds. And you're going to feel guilty, anxious, worried that you're being too harsh. That discomfort is normal. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something new. And new things always feel uncomfortable at first. Remind yourself why this boundary matters. Remind yourself that you're teaching your child a critical life skill. And remind yourself that their temporary discomfort is not the same as harm. If you need support with this, there are some excellent books that can help. Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab is a fantastic resource for understanding boundary work. Where to Draw the Line, How to Set Healthy Boundaries Every Day by Anne Catherine is another great book. And if you're specifically working on people-pleasing patterns, The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker is really helpful. Step 5, model boundaries in other relationships. Here's something a lot of parents don't think about. Your child is watching how you set boundaries with everyone, not just them. They're watching how you handle it when your mother-in-law oversteps. They're watching how you respond when a friend asks for something you don't want to do. They're watching whether you protect your own time and energy. If you struggle to set boundaries with other adults, your child is learning that boundaries aren't really that important. But if you model healthy boundaries, if you say no when you need to, if you protect your limits, if you speak up when something doesn't feel right, your child learns that boundaries are normal and necessary. So practice setting boundaries in your other relationships too. It's all connected. Let me bring this full circle and remind you why this work matters so much. When you set and hold boundaries with your child, you're teaching them that boundaries are important, protective, and worth respecting. You're teaching them that limits aren't mean, they're healthy. You're teaching them that they can handle disappointment and that their big feelings won't destroy them. And here's the long-term payoff. Your child will grow into an adult who knows how to set boundaries. They'll know how to say no without guilt. They'll know when someone is violating their limits and how to protect themselves. They'll know that their needs matter and that they don't have to tolerate behavior that doesn't feel right. They'll be safe. They'll be confident. They'll have healthy relationships. And they'll be able to advocate for themselves in ways that maybe you couldn't when you were their age. That's what you're building here. That's what this work is for. And as a bonus, when you hold boundaries consistently, your child learns to respect you. They stop pushing so hard because they know the boundary isn't going to move. And that creates a calmer, more peaceful home where everyone's needs, including yours, actually matter. Boundaries aren't about being strict or controlling. They're about being clear. They're about protecting your well-being so you can show up as the parent you want to be. And they're about teaching your child one of the most important life skills they'll ever learn. This work is hard, especially if you didn't grow up with healthy boundaries modeled for you. I know, I've lived it. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to doubt yourself. You're going to worry that you're being too harsh or too rigid. And some days, you're going to fail at holding the boundary and have to start over the next day. That's okay. That's part of the process. Progress, not perfection. But I promise you, this is some of the most important parenting work you can do. And every time you set a boundary and hold it, you're building your child's future capacity to protect themselves, advocate for their needs, and create healthy relationships. You're doing better than you think you are. All right, that's it for today. Boundaries are about what you will and won't accept and what you'll do to protect your own well-being. They're not mean. They're not rigid. They're necessary for you and your child. If this was helpful, hit subscribe so next week's episode shows up automatically. And here's a bonus. Head to my website at www.climbingfishparenting.com to sign up for my newsletter. You'll get practical strategies like this delivered straight to your inbox. Check out those books I mentioned. Set Boundaries, Find Peace, Where to Draw the Line, How to Set Healthy Boundaries, and The Disease to Please. I'll list all of them on Facebook and Instagram. All excellent resources. That strategy I just gave you, it's the whole climbing fish philosophy in action. There's a quote, everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. Your kid isn't broken. Your parenting isn't broken. Sometimes we're just asking our fish to climb trees. That's what we fix here. I'm Dr. Christy, and I'll see you next week.